Good morning, everybody. I think we'll get started. So welcome to today's webinar with us here at Quantum, Thriving in Employment, Solutions for Working People with Vision Impairment. And today we're really delighted to welcome several panelists from different organisations. So we have Georgia Miller from Job Access. We have our own Peter Cracknell from our Queensland office from Quantum. We have Rob Raiteri from the Employment Services in Vision Australia. We have Teresa Penny, who's from Brisbane City Council, and Daniel Keogh, who's also from Quantum and our Access Technology Support Officer. So I'll just go through some housekeeping. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands from which this webinar is being presented, which is all around the country, and pay our respects to elders past and present. For myself, I'm on Darug land here in New South Wales. So yeah, feel free to put in the chat which country you're joining us from. So just a bit of housekeeping if you've not joined us for one of our webinars before. So your microphone will be muted during the webinar, but we will have a couple of times for questions. But we would prefer if you've got any questions, please put them either in the Q&A area, which you can tab to or click on Q&A, or in the chat, which you can get to using Alt and H if you're a Windows user, or Command K for a Mac. If you do have any technical issues, please put them in the chat because I'll be monitoring that. We are recording the webinar and we'll send that to anyone who's registered. So that will come through afterwards by email, and it will be on our YouTube channel. And I have enabled automatic live captions so that they are an automatic translation. So just bear that in mind in terms of accuracy. So just a bit of an overview of today's session. Peter will give us a bit of an introduction. We'll then have Georgia Miller, who will talk about improving access and how Job Access can support you and your employees. And she's the manager of Job Access Advisory and Employee Assistance Fund for Job Access over in Perth. Well, they'll have some questions for Georgia. Peter will then introduce some different assistive technology for the workplace, and he's our manager for blindness and low vision products here at Quantum. Rob Raiteri will then talk about the Vision Australia employment service and how the assessment process for workplace adjustments happens, and referrals. We'll then have some insights from a couple of people who are in employment and have low vision or blindness. So that's Teresa Penny, who's Programme Officer, Strategic Projects and Business Improvements at Brisbane City Council, and Daniel Keogh, who's our Access Technology Support Officer here at Quantum. And then we'll have time for questions and our contact information. So I'll just do a brief introduction to us here at Quantum for those of you who may not know us. We are an assistive technology provider for people with a print disability. So whether that's low vision, blindness, or difficulties reading or accessing information, whether it might be due to acquired brain injury or stroke or dyslexia or other learning difficulties. We have a team of experienced consultants who can work with you, as well as our customer service and support teams who are available over the phone or via email and can answer queries. We've been established for over 35 years. Initially, we were a manufacturing company making things like the Mountbatten Brailler and the PF, but we've now diverged into being a distributor over the last almost 10 years, I think, or 12 years. And we have a wide range of equipment from different suppliers. So we are a national company and have 4 site support centres where you can come and view the equipment. So we have Spring Hill in Brisbane, where Peter's based, Thornley in northern Sydney, where I'm based. In southern Sydney, we have Kirrawee, and in Melbourne we have an office in Mount Waverley, so you can view things by appointment there. We do also have consultants that cover regional areas and look after all the other states and territories, whether that means they're traveling there or are actually based there. So, for example, we have Michael Palmer on the Gold Coast. We have our consultants in Melbourne that cover South Australia, Western Australia and Tasmania. And we do also cover the NT via Queensland. So we can demonstrate, we work with a wide range of suppliers to get the best equipment we can and look for innovative and new things that are also going to be reliable. We can demonstrate and trial most of the equipment for you, and we can work with you to do that, depending on where you are and how that works for you, whether that's coming into one of the centres or sending out equipment or coming out and trialing that with you. And yeah, we work with other agencies and individual allied health providers to help get that equipment out to people and work through the funding options, as well as yourselves as individuals working out what might be the best option for you. We are an NDIS registered provider, as well as providing equipment to those who've been funded through Job Access, and in addition we're a Department of Veterans Affairs provider, and we work with education, with tertiary, secondary, primary and My Aged Care, as well as those getting things funded privately. We do have after sales and support, whether that's our software support service that Danny runs, or our service centre for the actual hardware, so that we can fix when necessary. So I will now hand over to Peter, and he'll go over a bit more of an overview of the session. So thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Beck. Thanks very much. Can you hear me okay? Yeah.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I'm based here in Brisbane, and so I'm actually a manager for blindness and low vision technologies, which means that I'm across the whole range of products that we do. So just to give you an idea, we have products that are related to magnification. Some of those are products that to magnify paperwork, and some of them are products that magnify computer screens. We also have products for converting text to speech. That can be either on the computer, or it could be, again, the device that converts paperwork to speech output. We have braille displays that can connect to computers. And we also have some software that can help people who are struggling to read and write. So they may not have a vision impairment, but they may have problems creating content or reviewing content, maybe through dyslexia or some other learning difficulty. So we cover quite a big range of technology. Principally, that would be for people at home, in the workplace, or in education. So those are the three main areas that we're engaged with. And in today's session, of course, we're focusing on the workplace, though the technologies do span across all of the environments that they're used in. The thing about the workplace is we often think of it as being some big corporate place, and we have Teresa here from Brisbane City Council, which is a very large organisation. And of course, there are many people employed in those large organisations like banks and government departments. They often have very explicit policies for employing people with a variety of disabilities. But we often forget that there are many people who are self-employed, also people who own their own businesses, and they are often unaware that there is technology and supports that can help them thrive better in their employment, cope better, fatigue less, and basically progress better. And so that's what we're talking about today, is not just a technology, but also the supports that are in place that people in any walk of life can tap into to improve their employment prospects, and to improve their career advancement as well. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to start with Georgia from Job Access, and she's going to talk about some of the supports that are in place for anybody that wishes to engage in employment.
Just going to share my screen now. So, hiya everyone. My name is Georgia, and I'm the manager of the Employment Assistance Fund and the advisory team for Job Access. Thanks for Quantum for inviting me to speak today. Kaya is hello in the Noongar language, and I pay my respects to the traditional custodians of the region, the Whadjuk Noongar people, and their continuing connection to land, waters and community. I also pay my respect to elders past and present and their descendants. As we are attending from multiple regions, I'd like to acknowledge traditional owners throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land and waters and culture. I pay respect to the elders past and present. We need your knowledge and custodianship of this beautiful country now more than ever. We are delighted to be speaking to Quantum today with the participants to look at learning about how to organise workplace adjustments and the supports available in the workplace. So in today's session, I'm just going to cover what are workplace adjustments, financial support through the EAF, and the eligibility and the process for the fund. So let's just start by letting everyone know that Job Access is the national hub for disability employment for people with disability, employers and service providers. It's a free service to help remove barriers to disability employment. Our range of services include a dedicated advice service via phone and website. We operate a national call service on a 1-800 number delivered by a team of frontline professionals who provide free, confidential and expert advice. Our advisors are available to answer your questions on matters related to disability employment or can direct you to other support services as well. We have a really comprehensive website on information and advice too on disability employment. We coordinate the workplace adjustments and the modifications through the EAF, which I'll talk about today. We also have the National Disability Recruitment Coordinator, which is the employment engagement service of Job Access, working with large employers across Australia to increase disability confidence. And also we have the Complaints Resolution and Referral Service. So that aims to improve government-funded disability support services through a fair and impartial complaints resolution process. And the last thing that the program offers is the National Disability Abuse and Neglect Hotline, which is a vital reporting service available to anyone who suspects abuse or neglect of a person with a disability. So what the EAF does is it gives financial help to eligible people with disability and mental health conditions and employers to purchase work-related modifications, equipment and workplace assistance and support services. The EAF is available to eligible people with a disability who are about to start a job, are self-employed or who are currently working. It's also available to people with disability who need Auslan assistance or special work equipment to look and also prepare for a job. Job Access works with a national panel of assessors to conduct workplace assessments and advise on workplace modifications and support at no cost. Funding through the EAF can cover the cost of making workplace changes. This can include buying equipment, mods, and accessing services too. Many adjustments are low or no cost, as it's about putting simple supports in place too, such as flexible work hours and work from home arrangements. Employers can apply for the EAF through the Job Access website or call one of our advisors on the 1-800 number, and we can guide you through the process. The EAF can cover more than just the physical changes to the workplace as well. As I mentioned, it can provide funding for the Auslan interpreting, for job interviews and related activities such as site visits, testing, information sessions for people who are deaf or hard of hearing. We do awareness training. This can include generic disability awareness training, such as mental health awareness training. The EAF can provide $1,500 per year to employers for each eligible employee to conduct training in the workplace. And the training seeks to increase awareness, reduce stigma and improve attitudes, as well as increase the confidence of employers and co-workers as well to assist in someone seeking help. We also provide specialist support. And what that means is it's another $1,500 a year dedicated at enabling a specialist to come into the workplace with the employee and the employer to establish and provide a practical plan for work-based intervention aimed at meeting workplace goals and identifying any workplace barriers that that person has. In order to be eligible for funding to make workplace adjustments or mods, there are certain criteria. So you need to be employed, and so both employed and self-employed individuals need to be working at least 8 hours a week. You could be working, you might be aiming to get to 8 hours a week. So that's something we can look at if you're returning to work post an injury or an illness. If you have got a job and you haven't started the job yet, but you have a contract, we can, that's criteria would have been met as well. If you work 2 jobs as well, as long as they're 8 hours a week, we're happy to accommodate. You do have to earn an hourly income of at least equivalent to the national minimum wage. Be in a job that's expected to continue for 13 weeks or more, be an Australian citizen or a permanent resident, and have an ongoing disability that has lasted or will least likely last for 2 years. And that disability must limit, restrict, or impair your ability to work. A job seeker with a job plan can also be eligible. Application for workplace mods can be made by employees, service providers, or employers. For the purpose of this, I'm just focused on the employer application process. So basically, employers can submit an online application at www.jobaccess.gov.au. We will then assess the application and let your organisation know the outcome. If the application is successful, JobAccess will also advise if a workplace assessment is required. If one's not required, your organisation can just purchase the modifications and adjustments and then have the cost reimbursed by JobAccess. We work as a reimbursement scheme. If a workplace assessment is needed, we will arrange a specialist at no cost to assess what workplace changes may be required. The assessor will visit and look at your workplace, identify any barriers that may exist, and talk with you and the employee to find solutions to make the workplace more accessible and flexible. And then the organisation can then purchase the mods and get the cost reimbursed. Some helpful tips when making the application is to make sure the employee is eligible, complete all parts of the application and the supporting documentation, such as a letter from your GP confirming your condition. And please remember not purchasing anything until your application's being approved. But we're here to help, and we're happy to give us a call at any time to help through the process. I really wanted to highlight today some of the people in the vision community that we have assisted. So JobAccess has enabled thousands of people with blindness and low vision to find work, keep work, and also progress their careers. From business owners like Dr. Max Bergman, who manages his own ethically run camel dairy farm. For Max, we funded a KNFP reader, which is a handheld electronic reading device, and also a GPS auto steering control system. We also have assisted professionals like Fiona DeMark, who works for Vic Roads, where we funded a customised screen reader. And for self-employed Australians like Alistair Lee, he's an international voice artist. We funded specialised IT scripting services and a braille embosser. JobAccess provides support with tailored workplace adjustments for people with diverse backgrounds and different levels of vision loss. These are just a few of the many success stories, and we have many of them on the JobAccess website. Since 2006, JobAccess has managed over 63,000 applications for workplace mods and adjustments. Each one has made a difference. The feedback from employees and employers we have received regarding the workplace modifications that were made through the fund showed us that 97% of employees were still employed 3 months after receiving the workplace adjustments. 93% of employees indicated they were more productive after the implementation of the modification, and 94% of employees indicated the EAF provided the help it was intended to. If you want to learn more about workplace adjustments, a great starting point is a disability and adjustment tool on our JobAccess website. It provides a detailed list of common types of disability, explains symptoms, and outlines some possible adjustments and solutions. And that's it from me. So thank you for your time. And at any time, please contact us on the 1-800 number with any questions that you may have.
We'll just have a look and see if anyone's got any questions before we go over to Peter.
Well, while you're doing that, Beck, I do have a question, Georgia.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that presentation. It was really, really informative. You were concentrating on the employer route where they get reimbursed. What about the individual route where somebody applies as an individual?
Sure. So it's the same process. So they can purchase the equipment and then we will reimburse them. But we really love to get the employers engaged in this process, or the DES. So that's the preference, is the employers supporting their staff with disability. So yes, of course, as an individual applicant, you can get refunded as well, but we love the employers to get involved.
And the third route would be through a disability employment service as well.
Exactly. And they have the capacity to purchase and then get reimbursed by Job Access too.
I might ask a question actually, Georgia. So if someone's already in a job but then their role changes, can they apply for different equipment?
Absolutely. So if there's a new barrier that has come up with the new job role change, absolutely. Happy to come out again, because that happens a lot. So, and you know, medical conditions and disability, the functional capacity isn't the same. For a couple of years, something different might be needed to address. So happy to continue and work along with that person's journey.
Okay, we've had one question. Is there anything different if you're self-employed?
The only difference, yeah, so it's just that you have to just show us some evidence of the self-employed. So that's just a little bit different than your job contract. So, but it's very easy to do. So that's the only difference, is the evidence we need to confirm that you're self-employed.
I just mentioned that over the years, we found the process very, very straightforward. The way we often come across people in our visits and travels who we find are underemployed. They're not aware that they could tap into the services that you provide, Georgia.
Yeah.
So the process of simply giving them your contact details, your website, and it's very straightforward to put them down that pathway.
Yes.
We can step back in again if there's an equipment trial required, or if they... Absolutely. Yeah.
And any training that's needed to use the equipment as well. So it's not just a piece of equipment, it's learning. We can fund how to, the hours needed to learn how to use that to be super effective.
Okay, I've just, Susan, I'll just, see, did you want to ask a question?
Yeah, please. Just a couple of questions. Firstly, could you just touch upon the process for individuals, given that many organisations may only have one person, and that's related also to my question about, so that people are all aware of it, taking your modifications from one job to another?
Yeah, that's a good question. So firstly, as an individual, it's an online application form. So you complete the form online, and then within 2 business days, an advisor at Job Access will give you a call directly. So whoever put the application on will receive a phone call from one of the professional advisors straight away. Then the second question about the equipment. So yes, if equipment is portable equipment, we get the individual, so say yourself, Susan, to sign an ownership form with your employer, and your employer is also signing that you own that equipment. So if you leave that employment, you take that equipment with you. The only time that you're not the owner of the equipment is if we're putting something like an automatic door into a building. So obviously that's permanent, but in it's always the individual's equipment where it's portable.
Thanks, Georgia. And Debbie had also raised her hand. Did you have another question, Debbie?
Yes, thank you, Georgia. I just have a question around the time it takes to get equipment. I've been informed by the employment consultant through an organisation I go through that it takes about 3 months to get in the equipment. Is that actually correct?
So it's going to depend on the equipment. So Job Access, we will definitely, as we've got our KPIs is 2 business days for everything. So making a decision on your equipment, reading a report, getting back to you, speaking to your employer, etc. So we have a really quick turnaround. Unfortunately, sometimes equipment, there's supply chain issues, etc. So it's going to really be dependent on what equipment is that you're ordering. Some things are super quick and some things, unfortunately, especially if they're really specialized, can take a bit longer. So hopefully post-COVID, we're seeing an increase on stock coming in for certain items.
But if it was something like George's screen reading software, that wouldn't take 3 months to
Peter, what's that for George?
I would just chip in there that generally, because our equipment is either software or fairly portable, we don't have an issue in either trialing that or stock. Where there is sometimes an issue is where it's not certain how, say, the JAWS program is going to work with the various applications at the site. So sometimes there are rather complex interfaces or applications, and there might have to be a testing process prior, and that can actually bog things down because it involves obviously the IT department of the organization. It involves the individual testing, all the workflow and so on. So that can bog things down. But in terms of the equipment itself, no, there shouldn't be a delay from our point of view.
No, I just found that a bit odd. I thought, if you've got a job, an employer can't wait 3 months, that becomes in a handicap. And I thought if I got work, I had my own braille display, I'd at least do something. I had enough equipment that I could get by. And so that's why I asked the question. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks, Debbie. We've got a couple of other questions. Paul's asked if someone has an idea for starting a business but needs equipment to get up and running, is that?
Yeah, unfortunately, we have to be working minimum 8 hours a week. I have had an instance last year, and I presented it to the Department of Social Services because we administer the program on behalf of the federal government. And at that time, they weren't going to do that. So I am definitely always presenting those scenarios because I can see the advantage in that. But at the moment, the guidelines are clear, minimum 8 hours on national minimum wage. So if you could be doing that and then get your equipment, but unfortunately without a wage, it's not, the guidelines don't support that at the moment.
Okay, thank you. And we've got one other person that's raised their hand. Ramesh, I'll just let you talk.
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Georgia, for your talk. I've got a clear view and a portable hand reader from JobAccess from about 7-8 years ago when I had a problem, and I still have an ongoing issue. And it certainly helps. But the question really is, like, when you change a laptop from the one that was set up by the person that came home and set it up, laptops don't last 7 years. So who am I supposed to contact? Because the person that came and set it up is no longer reachable or approachable. And when you talk to Vision Australia, who organise it all, they say, well, are you a member of the NDIS and stuff? But it was all done through Job Access, and I was really happy about it. But I can't seem to know who will change. And I've actually got the USB token that fits in, but how does somebody set it up again on a new laptop?
Oh, that might be a question for us, Ramesh. We can always contact you, and if it was our software, we might be able to help with that, depending on what it is.
Is it being used for a work purpose or now just for a domestic purpose?
It's all for work purpose. I still practice as in a very limited role as a doctor, and it was for that, and I've been using it and continuing to work as a doctor for the last 7 years. But we're not that great with IT. Somebody set it up, and now laptops have changed.
Yep. So I'm from a job access perspective. If there's a barrier there that's impacting you doing your job because of the tech at the moment, you can reapply with us. But if it's something that your employer or someone like a Quantum can troubleshoot with you, that's another option, I guess.
All right, well, I'll leave it with Quantum as somebody just.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
cool.
we can contact you directly if we got you.
That sounds great.
Maybe
Just
see if we can
a
help.
solution.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so yeah, on their handover to, we might have had a couple of other questions. So yeah, on their handover to, we might have had a couple of other questions. We might move on to Peter just first of all, and then we'll have some more questions at the end. So those that have got raised hands will come to you then. So I'll now hand over to Peter, who's going to go through some of the equipment that's available to people with blindness and low vision. So.
Thanks very much, Beck. And so I've just wanted to give you an overview of, especially for people that are not familiar with this sort of technology, just an overview of, generically speaking, just some of the sort of options that people have who are vision impaired or blind. So I'm going to switch my camera to the long range camera, and I can move around the desk and just show some things. And I can also perhaps share my screen and show some software as well. I'm just going to switch cameras. Okay, Beck, can you see that okay?
Yes, yeah, that's fine.
I might as well start with the thing I'm looking at, which is a portable electronic device. Excuse me a moment. A portable electronic magnifier. So what we mean by an electronic magnifier is not an optical magnifying glass like when you look at stamps or something like that. The device this one's just called a Clover, but the idea is it can deliver much bigger magnifications than we can with an optical magnifier. So what you do is you just rest it on your paperwork, and then we can get very large magnifications, which we can adjust with either a button or a pinch gesture. So for those who are familiar with iPads and so on, we can also use the touch screen as well. We move just left and right just by sliding. We can change the background color by pressing a button on the left. And so if somebody's very glare sensitive, we can change to a black background or another color. It can be resting flat on the paperwork, or you can actually hold it like just hover over a paperwork like this. We could just change the magnification as well. Now, one of the reasons why hovering is quite useful is, can you imagine you're going to the photocopy machine and you wanted to look at some of the dials on that? This way you could be just hovering over the equipment, or maybe you're going through a filing cabinet and you wanted to flick through the tabs and so on. You could do that, and it's a very portable electronic magnifier. Also useful if you wanted to look at something that's slightly distant, because it is possible to zoom in on distant things. For example, a shelf or something like that. You couldn't quite see the labeling on the shelf. Yeah, you could use this to zoom in on that. So that's an example of a portable electronic magnifier, and they come in various shapes and sizes from about 3 inches up to around about 10 inches. In that range, we still call them portable. So that's an example where you might be using a device at your desk, but also around the office, or even out of your office, inspecting equipment or dials or that sort of thing. I remember one of our customers, he actually worked with animals, and he needed to look at some of the documentation that was attached to saddles and so on. And so he was using a device like this to read that in the field, so to speak. Of course, this is portable, battery powered. Then we also have what we call desktop electronic magnifiers, and these have much larger screens. So with a large 24-inch screen like this, we can get very large magnifications, and we can see an awful lot of field of view. So we can actually now start to work with paperwork and compare stuff on the left with stuff on the right. So it may be that we might need to move across and look at figures. We might use some of the fancy features like line markers to assist us keeping things straight. So you can imagine there could be a docket, an invoice or something like that, and you can actually look across a whole row like this because the screen is so large. This particular model is controlled by a remote control where we can just zoom in on the paperwork. We can also change the colours and so on as required. This is a 24-inch screen. It's on an articulated arm, so it can be moved out of the way when not required. It can also double up as a computer screen. There is actually the possibility of having computer input so that you could switch from, say, a laptop's output onto this screen and switch back to the magnified paperwork just with a button on the remote. Another very popular combination in the workplace, especially in offices, is to have one of these electronic magnifiers butted up against a regular 24-inch or larger computer monitor, so that you can actually compare paperwork with, say, a spreadsheet on the other screen. And that's a very common arrangement in the workplace. Sometimes people will prefer to have not an articulated arm like this, but they might have something with a movable tray, just so that they can steadily move paperwork left and right. And bear in mind also that these devices can be used for writing as well. So it is possible to get your pen under here and write, fill in forms and so on under these screens. So everything I've shown you so far is to do with magnification and contrast. Sometimes that's all people need just to magnify their paperwork and various bits of office equipment around them. But we also have text-to-speech as well. And text-to-speech is the process of converting textual information to spoken information. This can be done either with one of these desktop machines, which has got a speech component built in. I don't actually have one on the desk to demonstrate that today, but it's a combination device that can magnify or can read out loud paperwork that's placed underneath it. What I can demonstrate is a more portable version. And what we have is a very portable handheld text-to-speech device. I'll just switch it on. This one's called the Allcam Read.
Bluetooth audio device XC 5229 connected.
I've connected it by Bluetooth to a speaker just so you can hear what it's saying. Normally, of course, it will be speaking from the back of the device, which you can Bluetooth to earbuds, or you could just simply listen by bringing it up close to your ear. Now, the idea with this is that you may have some paperwork that you want to read out, and all you do is you simply aim the device at the paperwork, press a button. For those of you that can see, it's actually putting a frame on the paperwork.
\O of 8, 41 inches, load.
And I can actually aim it at any part of the document to read it. So if I want to aim it at the top right, I could just do that.
Account number 258494570, tax invoice issued the 24th of June 2021. Billing P.
And I'll just bring that as close as I can. That's just reading basically the printed information in the top right corner. So you saw how quick that was and how portable the device is. It's something that could be in your pocket, and when you come across anything printed that you wish to read, you could just zap it with the Allcam Read, and it would read it top to bottom for you. There are also many other features on this that allow you to just drill down to just the amounts of money or the dates things are due and so on. So it's quite sophisticated, but the most important takeaway point is that it's highly portable. It is possible to also fit it into a frame. So here we have a frame that the device can just slot into, and that then positions it at just the right height to put your paperwork underneath, press the button, and it will then read that for you. That's an example of a portable one. We also have a transportable, if you like, version called the Pearl camera. And the Pearl camera actually looks very similar. It's again raised up above paperwork so that you can actually scan your paperwork into a computer and have that either converted to large print or read out loud. And that could be multiple documents. It could be taking like 20 pages, one after the other. So that's a productivity thing. This being portable means that you could use it with a laptop, which gives you some options for moving from room to room and so on.
Mm-hmm.
The next thing I want to just talk about is some of the wearable technology.
Yep.
So this is an example of a headset that has got a magnifying camera at the front and screens on the inside. This can be useful for people that need their hands free, but they need to magnify something. So, for example, perhaps they're a sound technician. They need to be able to see dials and knobs and equipment, but they need their hands free. They could wear this and zoom in on the equipment while their hands are free. Or it could be that they're in a warehouse and they needed to look at something quite distant, maybe 10 or 15 feet away, and they wanted to look at a shelf or a piece of equipment to see that they were stocked and so on. So this is an example of a hands-free magnification system that you wear as rather like a virtual reality headset. For people that read Braille, and Danny will talk about this a bit later on, it is possible to connect an electronic Braille display to your laptop or your whichever the device you have, and convert what's on the screen to Braille here. So this Danny can talk about this a bit later on. And we also have a range of keyboards with large print on them. So some of these are wireless and some of them are cabled. The idea is that it's just easier to see the large caps on the keyboard. And of course, I have to mention these software programs that we have as well. It's difficult to demonstrate on these webinars the effect of magnification software, because when we use Zoom and share screens, it doesn't transmit the effect. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to fire up another computer with Zoom text on it and show you the effect of the magnification software. So actually what I'm looking at is this is actually a Mercury laptop. What it is, it's a Surface Pro Windows computer embedded in a frame. It can double up as a computer and as a magnifier, an electronic magnifier. So it's a very portable solution for people that need to move to a meeting place, to their office, and maybe outside the office as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the Zoom text software just to show you the effect of magnification of the screen. And this is the kind of software that in either a Zoom text or as what we call Fusion, which combines the JAWS program, that is typically used with a whole range of Windows applications. And Teresa will talk about that, I imagine, in a moment when she talks about her workplace.
Yes.
Zoom text enabled. Zoom text magnifier reader. Zoom level 2.
And so what it's done is it starts at level 2, but we can increase the magnification.
2.25. 5.
And there's at 5 times magnification, and everything is still smooth. This is the beauty of this special software, is that you can have smooth magnification. The downside is, of course, almost everything is off the screen, and you do need to move around quite a lot with the mouse here.
2023. Please close all applications and press enter to restart your computer and run in.
And you'll hear in the background
okay,
that it is actually speaking as well. And we can combine speech, text to speech with the magnification to read emails, websites, and so on. We can change the colors, we can reverse to black background if people are glare sensitive, and we can have some focus tools that enable us to see where we are as we navigate through that. So, and just to finish, I know I'm running over a bit, Beck, thanks.
That's right.
But I did want to just mention also, of course, that we also have some tools, software tools, to help people who are struggling with their reading and writing. And the two that we frequently used in the workplace are Dragon Naturally Speaking, which is a dictation tool, and Text Help Read and Write, which is more of a productivity tool to read things back and have them highlighted, and also to give some advanced word prediction and spell checking as well. So I think that's just a general overview of the sorts of technologies we typically see in the workplace. Apologies if I missed any, but I'm sure perhaps Teresa and Rob might mention other technologies that are available as well. So back to you, Rebecca.
Okay, thank you, Peter. So I will, yeah, that was a great overview. It's hard to do it quite quickly. We could talk all day about the technology, but yeah, where we can demonstrate things, and yeah, I'll put up our contact details at the end. So I'll now hand over to Rob Raiteri from Vision Australia to talk about the employment services and how they fit into the whole assessment process. And
okay, thank you, Beck, and hello everyone. Yes, as Beck said, I'm an employment consultant with Vision Australia Employment Services. So Vision Australia Employment Services is a part of Vision Australia, and we deliver employment supports to people who are blind or have low vision. We do this primarily through the Disability Employment Services Program, which is funded through the Department of Social Services, but we can also provide supports through NDIS. So I'm just going to give a quick overview of what we do as part of our services, and then talk a little bit about eligibility and referral process to our service, and then you'll hear from Teresa, who was a former client and now working independently in a new role. So what we do, firstly, the job seeker will be registered. They'll come into the program. We do an assessment on their skills, their interests, and work out a career path for them to help them get into that paid work. We also look at barriers they might face due to their vision and recommend different solutions. So sometimes that's through the equipment that Peter just demonstrated, or it could be through some extra training or supports around that. We help with all the job search training, so cover letters, resumes, looking at different websites that might be useful, other resources that can help them achieve their goals. We do look at goals because it is a program. We work regularly with the job seekers. We do develop a job plan. We generally meet about every fortnight, so sometimes it might be just looking at getting different steps towards employment. Some people might need a little bit more extra time or support to get to that level, and other people are job ready from the day they come to us. We do assess their assistive technology needs. So some of our clients may just have acquired a vision loss and are unaware of the equipment that can help them. So and other people might not be aware of the latest technology and other equipment that might help. So we provide them with information on different assistive technologies and how to use that equipment. We also look at different training prospects. So that could be looking at TAFE courses or online training just to develop their skills in that. We do job ready programs. We deliver different job clubs on different topics, and that's to make sure that the job seeker is job ready and ready for the workforce. We help them with looking for work. Because we are an employment provider, we do have a network of employers that we've worked with in the past, so we can approach them directly. Because it is difficult with somebody with a disability when they're applying online for jobs. They're competing against people who are, fully sighted with their so just getting access to that hidden job market whether it's through the job seekers' personal networks or through contacts that we've made by contacting employers directly. We can sometimes get outcomes that way. There is wage subsidies available we can offer to employers. Now that's sometimes that mainly for the small to medium employers, that can be the incentive that they need to take somebody on. It's not a huge financial incentive, but it does help. We are a big user of the Job Access Employment Assistance Fund, which Georgia presented about, and that's we're finding that most people with vision impairments do require some sort of adjustments when they do start employment. So nearly every client that we have in our program that goes into employment, we would do a Job Access application for them to get the equipment that they need. Our support extends to beyond placement. So once you are placed, we don't forget about the worker. It's working with the employer and the candidate to make sure that that is ongoing, and that's for as long as it's required. It's generally for a 12-month period, but if there is ongoing support needed after that, we can arrange an assessment to just to justify that client needs our support to stay in the job, and they'll continue on with that. Just a little bit on eligibility and referral for the Disability Employment Services Program. The first one is they must be an Australian resident or be legally able to work in Australia. They need to be aged 14 years or over up until the retirement age, which as of the 1st of July, which is Saturday, it turns into 67. So in the last couple of years, we've been transitioning from 65 to 67. At the moment, it's 66 and a half, but come July 1, it'll be 67. So if you are within those age groups and you register with our employment program, you'll stay in that program until that program ends, which is period of service is generally about 18 months. So if somebody registers and they're 66, they don't exit the program when they turn retirement age. They will stay until that program period of service is done. The other one is eligibility criteria for DES is not already working or in full-time employment. So that's the main one that we're finding we have to turn through, decline people services through the DES program. And being in work is what Georgia spoke about earlier. It's that 8 hours a week. So if you're doing more than 8 hours a week or in full-time study, you're not eligible for the DES program. And for Vision Australia Employment Services, your primary disability must be vision loss. So the Disability Employment Services Program is a national network of service providers, but Vision Australia is a specialised provider in blindness and low vision. So there is that requirement. You also need an assessment from Services Australia to say that you've got a work capacity of 8 hours a week or more. So that's done through Centrelink, and that can always be a bit confusing or complicated for people to go to Centrelink. So we can certainly help through that process. But to get referred into the program, you do require what they call an employment services assessment, and that's arranged through Centrelink. So that's basically how to get into the DES. Now, if you're not eligible for DES, we can provide some services through the National Disability Insurance Scheme. So firstly, you've got to be not eligible for DES. So if you've got fund and you need funding in your package to attach to finding and keeping a job. Some people would... I'm sorry, just missed that one. Some people in their plans would have employment goals, but if the funding isn't attached into finding and keeping a job, we're unable to provide that support through NDI. So what we're finding we're needing to do with clients who are getting support through the NDIS is to send them back to NDIA for a plan review to get that funding attached to them. And the services are, it's different funding streams. So as for the Disability Employment Services Program, you're working with that candidate through a program, whereas the NDIS is sort of just individual supports around capacity building. So improving their skills in writing resumes or finding, how to find different appointments, approaching appointment interview skills, things like that. Okay, look, that's in a nutshell. That's what we do with in employment services. Now, I know we've still got a couple of speakers to go with people who are working in employment, and I know Teresa is a former client of Vision Australia who come through the program and also has had some equipment through Job Access to help her in her role.
Okay, thanks, Rob.
Okay.
That's a great overview. So yeah, I'll now hand over to Teresa, who's working in Brisbane City Council, to talk about her experiences with the job access process and finding a job and using equipment. So yeah, thanks for joining us.
Thanks. So as I said, my name's Teresa Penny. I currently work for Brisbane City Council. However, I think it was around 4 years ago, I contacted Vision Australia as I was a swimming coach, and I was born with a progressive eye disease that was making my job really difficult. I was noticing that I wasn't able to see the end of the pool anymore, and I needed to essentially change careers. So I contacted Vision Australia and I was put in touch with Rob, who was very helpful. He came out, we met, we spoke to my employers, and they assisted in a transition from the pool to the office. And in that course, there was letters written in regards to what would my job capacity be and how many hours a week it would be, so I could to qualify for the assistance. So Job Access was super helpful in that space. I was they purchased a monitor for me, an extra large monitor, so I could get up the enrolments that I would have to and data that I would have to enter. I was supplied a keyboard that was a large print keyboard. Also, there was a big glass panel behind me that was reflecting the pool that was behind the glass, and it was quite hard to see the screen. So they actually supplied the tint that went on the window for that as well. And that was they also supplied Fusion, which was the assistive technology that Peter was showing earlier, which is a combination of a Zoom where you can zoom in and it will read aloud. So I've had that for a number of years. So prior to that, I never had any assistive technology. So I wasn't aware what was out there and around. And in the space of being a swimming coach, there's not much assistive technology you can use in a pool. But yes, that was a great transition. And then COVID happened and we didn't have swimming anymore. So I had to reskill, rang Rob and said, I'm going to have to find another job because there's no work. So we went to, I applied for the DOORS program, which is the Disability Action at Work scheme through Brisbane City Council. And in the interim, I was upskilling because my background was swimming with a little bit of admin. So I went to Vision Australia. I did a touch typing course, which they assisted me with. And I started using the Fusion and upskilling myself on how to use the shortcuts and things like that. And then I was successful in the application at Brisbane City Council, and then I started working here. And then once again, Job Access was able to, I needed 2 monitors for my job. So they were able to supply those for me, including the stands that they needed to go on the back of the tables so that they were able to be moved height adjustment and side to side. I've also had a magnifying glass, electronic magnifying glass supplied, so I can use the read sheets and things documents if I need to use that as well. So I've had lots of services assist me, and it's been great in especially transitioning into multiple roles and different roles. And both Vision Australia and Job Access have helped me in all of those aspects. And knowing that they're there has been a really big difference, that the support, not only for the technology, but just support. I've messaged Rob on a number of occasions with different things, and they both have been very helpful in helping me succeed in where I am now. So,
oh, that's great. Thanks, Teresa. So no, that's really good to hear. And just before I switch to Danny, someone had asked about work assist, Rob, in that part of the program.
Yes, sorry, I should have overlooked that. That's a very, very important part of what we do. Work assist is if you're currently in a job and you're having issues due to your vision, that you can, we can certainly register you as what they call a job assist. So that bypasses the whole Centrelink process, and we can support you in identifying supports, equipment, and what you might need to keep that current job going.
Okay,
So,
oh, that's
yes.
great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so now I'll hand over to Danny, who is our Access Technology Support Officer and does our software support and training for us here at Quantum. So yeah, Danny, I'll hand over to you, and if you'd like to talk about a bit about your experience with in the workplace.
Very much, Beck. I'm not going to talk about the job access procedure, nor am I going to talk about Vision Australia's employment services, purely because it's been a very, very long time since I've had anything to do with either of them. So I'm really not in the position to do that at all. What I will talk about, though, and I'll expand a little bit on what's been mentioned already, a couple of points that have been brought up that Peter made, and a couple of other mentions that have been made as well. So my role here at Quantum is mainly technical support and training. So people have hassles with their Zoom text, which Peter's already gone through, then I'm generally the one who will get hold of that first. It may be passed on to somebody else if it needs a visit or whatever the case is, but in most cases, I'm the one who'll generally get it first. Now, some of the other technology that, so I am 100% blind, one of the rare people who is literally 100% blind. We are a very small minority within a minority, basically. So my work is purely done audio-based and also braille-based. Now, one of the things Peter did mention before was a braille display, and I do apologise, my camera work is terrible for obvious reasons.
No, that's great, Danny. Can see
that is basically, for people who can see it, that is a braille display. So what would normally happen is, as the text changes on the screen, your braille dots along there will also change, and that really doesn't show up well on camera, so I'm not going to actually demonstrate that. But that's basically what happens. So you have braille keys up the top here. You've got a whole bunch of other controls, a bunch of navigation controls at the front. Look, to be perfectly honest, most braille displays are fairly similar in how they operate. There are a lot of different models and makes and sizes and all sorts of things out there, so that'll give you a little bit of an idea. One of the things, actually the main thing I also use in my work is JAWS. Now, unfortunately, I can't screen share purely because of the way I've got things set up, but it gives me an excuse to actually give you an idea of how I do operate, because I can't see the screen anyway. So hopefully you can hear this as I move around the desktop.
Customer information, desktop.ini.
So
keys,
all that's happening there,
SharePoint document management,
is JAWS is reading out the icons as I hit them.
the hub,
And I'm just moving around one of our standard work computers, desktops, just with the arrow keys, nothing fancy, nothing at all going on.
Word,
We can go into Word.
enter, document 1-Word, print, edit.
And that just tells me that it's ready to operate. So anything and all that happens on the screen, and there's a lot of intelligence, a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes with this, obviously. JAWS will read that out. Now, there's no magnification here. This is designed purely for people like myself who have no usable vision or not enough usable vision to really make much use out of the screen. This is also the second part of what Teresa was talking about with Fusion. So Fusion is a mix of the Zoom text, which Peter demonstrated before, and JAWS, which I've just demonstrated. It's literally both packages in a single program. So you have the ability to run one or the other or both if you need to. The advantage with that, it's really handy for people who are either losing their vision or just for people who want that extra speech output. Zoom text has got limited speech output. JAWS basically tells you anything. I mean, I can even do silly things like getting the font out of this.
12-point, black on white, Arial, normal style, line spacing :single, paragraph formatting :aligned left, outline level :body text.
All of that information that you just heard, I got with a single keystroke. So that sort of gives you a little bit of an idea as to just a tiny, tiny bit of what this thing can actually do, just once you know how to use it properly. One other thing that was mentioned was scripting. Now that came up a couple of times. So all of the stuff that most of what JAWS is doing, most of how it operates is based on its own internal programming or coding, I think is the current term that seems to be fairly popular, language. And the developers of JAWS have called that scripting. It's a scripting language. So if you don't like how JAWS is behaving in a particular situation, and if you have the ability to change it, then if you do have that ability, you can actually change how JAWS behaves. The biggest advantage to that is that if an application doesn't behave well with JAWS, in a lot of situations, you can get it to behave well. There are people around Australia, there are a couple of people who do that sort of thing for a living. We don't handle it here at Quantum, but we can put you onto somebody who does. And that's one of the things that they do. That can also be done through Job Access funding. There's a lot of people out there who are using customized scripts for, a lot of it's for internal applications within large organizations. So they may be using something which is completely internal, nobody else has it, and it just doesn't behave well with JAWS. Now, to give you a little bit of an idea,
Alt-F,
let's close Word.
Windows 4, untitled dash.
So I've now opened Notepad, and I did something really stupid with the scripts earlier today. Control-B in Notepad normally does nothing. But if I press Control-B on this computer...
This is the JAWS script. There is absolutely no point to this except to demonstrate a tiny part of what is possible with JAWS scripts.
That was done with a 3-line piece of code, basically. That entire string of characters. Now, none of that's written on the screen. Okay. I could get it to write on the screen if I wanted to, but I just told JAWS to read that out. So Control-B.
This is the JAWS.
And I shut it up with the Control key there. So that's just a really, really silly, stupid example of what you can actually do with this. And it can get way more complicated, even to the point of almost writing, and some people, again, have done this, writing alternative interfaces to programs. So that it literally makes a program behave nothing like what it would if you were a mouse user or if you were sighted, but you can then get full access to that particular piece of software. And actually one of the things that Quantum does sell, a program called Typeability, which is a typing tutor, is actually based on that JAWS scripting language. A lot of it is written using that particular language.
Okay.
Some of the other things that I use, so getting off the JAWS, a lot of my work is phone call based. So we have the trusty Aftershocks headset. The advantage with this is obviously for those who sort of know what this is that it doesn't cover your ears. So you can be on the phone, it's sitting there in front of your ears, you're hearing the phone call. I also use earbuds that I just put in my ears, and I can hear a phone call and JAWS coming through at the same time. And then if I want to, I've also got Braille access there as well. iPhone, obviously, with voiceover and speech. If I have to travel, I've made sure that there is a GPS package that I know very well. I do have a seeing eye dog. What else? Couple of laptops. And look, to be perfectly honest, that's basically all of the stuff that I use for work. Any sort of other equipment, I'm lucky enough that I work for a company that actually has a lot of this equipment on hand anyway.
Right.
So in a lot of cases, there hasn't really been any need for me to get hold of any extra stuff.
Danny, can I just ask you a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Peter here. Take the example of you getting to work.
Yep.
Where does Job Access start? And this is a question also for Georgia and for Rob, in terms of you getting to work and capacity with orientation and mobility, and where is that considered just part of your skill set as a blind person for just general getting around?
In my case, that was all handled off my NDIS package. So I did need to do a couple of O&M sessions when we moved our Melbourne office from Cheltenham, where it used to be a few years ago. When we moved that to Mount Waverley, where we are now, I did need a couple of sessions. That was all, in my case, it was totally handled through NDIS. Georgia might be better off to sort of speak on how Job Access handles that type of thing.
Yeah, so basically anything in the workplace is Job Access and anything in the community is the NDIS.
Okay.
There is incidences where we do O&M, we fund O&M training. So parking the car at work when you're in your workplace and navigating a new car park if you're new to the work, or your bus stop near the work, etc. But it's mainly NDIS is community.
That's really good. And yeah, I'll also mention you do training with people virtually, don't you? With
we do
train,
yeah, virtually.
Things, yeah.
Not so much face to face these days. I think the whole opening up of things like Zoom and phone and all of this other sort of stuff, in a lot of cases, have made face to face training in some situations obsolete. Some people do prefer it, and obviously we can still do it. But I have sort of over the last few years, it's certainly been declining the amount of face to face stuff.
Yeah, and with JAWS, it can get it. If it's another JAWS user, there's the tandem option normally lets you get in, doesn't it? If you need to follow what people are doing.
You can if it'll get through security. If you're looking at somebody who's in a corporate environment, that's not likely to happen. But for home users or maybe even some small business users, yeah, absolutely. There's JAWS Tandem, which basically allows you to connect two machines together. And whatever the other user does, I hear in my headphones, and I've also got control of their machine as well.
Oh, lovely. That's
some time back, but
yes.
From the floor at all.
Yes. Have we got any other questions? Oh, yes, Susan. You had another question?
Yeah. Look, I'll stick it with one, even though I've got two. The issue around using NDIS versus DES, Disability Employment Services. What circumstances, Rob, would somebody not qualify for? Like, in what circumstances would somebody have to revert to their NDIS plan because they didn't qualify for DES? What sorts of lack of qualification would that be?
What we're seeing mainly is somebody who's already working and looking to change jobs. So that would be an area, or somebody who's in full-time study. So they're probably the main areas that people aren't eligible for DES and can utilise their NDIS. There are other things like that full-time study we spoke about, not having a capacity to work 8 hours from a Centrelink assessment. So there are a few areas that people aren't eligible for DES, and they can, as long as they've got that funding in their NDIS package, there's employment supports available for that.
Well, thanks, Rob. Did that? Yeah, great. We've had another question. Oh, that's probably for us. Somebody asking about the writing software that can be used in the workplace. I think that was the Dragon software.
The Dragon
is naturally speaking. Yeah.
That's a speech to text software which actually types for you when you talk, and also allows you to control the computer. But in terms of writing assistance tools, the Text Help Read and Write program gives you some extra tools for writing, not including speech to text as well, but also an enhanced spell checker, and also features to improve the appearance of the text, especially for people who normal text gets jumbled up. They can change the background, change the word separation, the line spacing, and so on. There's also some word prediction tools in there as well. So that's the read and write program.
Yeah, and that most of the software we have is available to trial. Dragon unfortunately isn't, but they have a 30-day money back guarantee. But yeah, it has improved a lot over the years as well. It works in a slightly different way now, and it's all sorts of things you can do with it. So yeah, I can't see anyone's.
Dragon. Can I just quickly say,
yep.
Dragon is incredibly. There's a really, really impressive piece of software. I've even seen it work for people with fairly moderate to almost what you'd class as severe speech impediments, and it takes a little bit longer to train it, but it can actually get used to even that. And I've seen it do that. I've seen it firsthand work pretty accurately with people in those situations.
Yeah, and that's great, Danny. Yeah, no, we've had some good experience with that more recently. I'd just like to say thank you so much to everybody that's joined us, Georgia, Rob, Teresa, Danny, and of course Peter, and thank you for all the attendees. I will just put up Quantum's contact information, so if you do want to contact us about trying any of the equipment or learning more about what we have and how we can help, there is information on our website, Quantum RLV, so that stands for Reading Learning Vision.com.au. You can call our customer service team on 1300 883 853 or email us at info, that's INFO, at quantumrlv.com.au. So thank you, everybody. If there's questions I missed, by all means, contact us. So, and I'll leave it there. So we'll get the recording out. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.